What is going on, and welcome back to Continuing Education in Class, a philosophical series on how to think better. I had up to 50 lessons, now we're on lesson 52 in continuing education because, well, let's face it, in different languages, whether it's German, whether it's Latin, so on and so forth, Class A has an E in it, and that deals with emotion. So let's get into lesson 52, how to pay attention to understand. Now, as always, I do have my little outline here because I do tend to need to put things in a sequence so that things make sense from time to time, right? Everybody wants people to go off the top of the head and all this other stuff, but that's just memorization. It's not putting things in a specific sequence so that people can clearly understand it. And for that, sometimes you need an outline. So let's get into it. Listen, don't just cheat. Most people, they want to know things, right? But they just want to know. They don't want to pay attention and understand. They don't have a lot of patience. So instead they'll cheat. They'll eavesdrop. They'll tap your phone. They'll do other stuff just to see exactly what's going on because they just want knowledge, or what I would like to call information, because, well, let's face it, information is the greatest form of currency. And without that, well, how are you going to make decisions on the stock market, in life, in business, so on and so forth, right? So they want information, but they don't want to ask you for the information, how you acquired it or whatever, because they need plausible deniability or whatever the case, right? They'll just cheat, right? So they'll go all above and beyond for, well, the information that seems, well, credible, that's checked out time and time again, depending on what source that you're using, right? So listen, don't just cheat. Now, what is listening? Listening is hearing with the intent to understand, right? You ever been in a relationship? It's like, oh, I feel like you hear me, but you don't understand me, right? Yes, you can hear somebody just like you can hear music, but do you understand the lyrics? Do you understand the story? Do you understand what's being said and told, right? Point number 2, you enjoy entertainment like Hell's Kitchen, but in the real world, you pretend you don't know why he's yelling, right? So either you're stuck on stupid, or as I would like to refer to as PD, playing dumb, so on and so forth, right? Because, well, let's face it, if you spell the word dumb, the B is silent, right? So are you stuck on stupid? Are you playing dumb? Are you not understanding? I mean, if you were to go to, and now most of you know that I was in the military, but if you were to see Marine Corps drill instructors or drill instructors in general or drill sergeants, you would understand they use their voice in a certain manner, right? They use their pitch, their tone, everything else, their volume in a certain manner. They project if they need to in order to get attention. You see how my decibels went up and then down, right? Because everything has a meaning and a purpose. And if you don't understand that, then you're going to be sadly misconstrued and lost in the sauce. And every time you hear something, right, which is otherwise known as hearsay in the court of law, right? Oh, I heard someone say, oh, I heard this one say, oh, I heard that one say, oh, yo, homie, yo, homeboy's talking about you, or this, that, and the third, or, hey, man, so, old boy at the bar the other night, he took out this little, like, green pen thingy, and this lady wanted to take a picture, not understanding what the hell was going on. You see how the accent changed? It didn't really matter. The messaging was still the same, right? They heard certain things. And if you don't remember, there was a lesson called seeing with your ears and hearing with your eyes. So are people doing that very thing? Are they actually trying to, well, understand, right? Are they trying to play dumb for some reason? Because I got no time for it. I really don't, right? And these amateur games are pretty much foolish. And the only person you're making a fool of is yourself. And then you get upset when you don't get things your way. You get upset when you're like big fucking children, right? But yet you'd rather watch entertainment, and you know when Gordon Ramsay's yelling in the kitchen, right? If you're watching Hell's Kitchen during the competition, oh, you Tulsa, you idiot, blah, 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 blah. This is how you make a beef Wellington, not like this. You understand the frustration. You understand the reason why he has 3 Michelin stars. You understand the reason why he's so well respected. You understand certain characteristics about his demeanor and the level in which he scrutinizes those that are going to be put in a position of power, because 9 times out of 10 on Hell's Kitchen, they are put in charge of certain things, right? Just like if you have a child, or you have your only child because you don't have more than one. There's a special one out there. I'm not going to name any names, but clues in the title. Mommy, what's up? So on and so forth. Tell her that for me if you get to watch this. But, and that mommy thing is not like a Spanish, hey, mommy, what's up? No, like, tell your mom to say, hey, Michael said, what's up? So, it's one of those things where I was just like, okay, people are either playing dumb, right? We've been playing PD too much, right? The B silent, so they get amnesia. Oh, I don't know, I never said that. But then when you start to record them, all of a sudden they remember. Or, oh, I didn't say the army called, I said the police called. Oh, you mean the military police? Oh, well, let me show you something since you want to be so cute. You see this part right here on the phone that says ICCID? This is an acronym that can mean many different things. Now, when I start seeing people's reaction, their body, their voice, their mannerisms, their posture start to shift, it's like being a doctor. I know exactly if I'm on the right path or not. There's a TV show called Suits. And let's do a mic check real quick. All right. There's a TV show called Suits, and Harvey Specter says when you're in litigation or when you're investigating certain things, as far as a case is concerned, you have to think like a doctor. You have to keep pushing until they say ow or it hurts. That's how you know you're looking in the right spot, right? Same concept, right? Similarly to when I was in the military, I was an ammo tech, right? Most people, oh, why are you talking about this? Why are you talking about that? And ammo tech is like an attorney or lawyer when it comes to ammunition and explosives when you're trying to get it out of the ammunition supply point. So it doesn't fucking matter if somebody comes with their paperwork. If they're not an ammo tech, then they don't know the lingo, they don't know the jargon, and they're going to try everything under the sun to try to either pull rank, freak out, get in your face, yell at you, so on and so forth. And as security, you're supposed to say, fuck you, pay me. Now go get your ammo tech so I can talk to him because you don't know what the fuck you're saying, right? And they may get disgruntled. They may get upset. So I'll say, okay, wait right here. I'll go find somebody you do respect. And I'll go get a higher up, whether that's Master Guns, whether that's an OIC, and I'll come out with them, and they will say the exact same fucking thing that the person in truck checkers that you got to get by. Why didn't you listen to them? Why didn't you listen to they're in charge of truck checkers. They're in charge of the gate. They're in charge of lifting the arm so that you could come in so you could get your shit and get on with your day. Why are you giving them such a hard time? Go unfuck yourself and then come back. Oh, aye, ma'am, or aye, sir, or yes, Master Guns, right? But if you were never trained that way, if you don't understand that, then you're not going to understand that in the real world either, because you're a pedestrian or a civilian that's, let's just say a pedestrian or civilian, right? And there's a difference, right? A civilian can be a veteran, a former law enforcement, former whatever, former military, former doctor, whatever. A pedestrian is everyone else that has not been in the first response industries, etc., right? Point number 3, payment is always due. Business normally doesn't care, right? So track your finances as a priority and then party later, right? So what does this mean? Right? So I'll say it again. Payment is always due. Businesses do not care normally, right? So track your finances as a priority, then party later. Oh, you had this money, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I also had a job that paid me 6 figures, or I had a business that paid me 6 figures. How did I get there? I studied, I busted my ass, right? I read. If you were tracking my GPS, you know that if I'm studying or quoting law, like 18 USC, blah, 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 241, 242, or USC 47, which deals with communications, wiretapping, fraud, and everything. And yes, if you're using wireless communications, satellites, or telecom, whatever the case may be, that is wire, right? That's communications. That falls underneath USC 47 in the US code, right? But if you don't respect the code and you don't understand analogies like Jack Sparrow or Pirates of the Caribbean, when somebody and they were at the little table and somebody said, fuck the code, and somebody got shot, etc. And he was like, fuck the code, etc. Right? And then Jack Sparrow jumped in. He goes, oh, wait, right here, right in the code. It says this, right? So if you don't respect it, then get the fuck out. If you don't respect it, say it. But I guarantee you, most of you will respect it if it pertained to you, not if it pertained to someone else, because people don't give a shit unless it pertains to them, right? They didn't come out with a cure for other things until it affected them. Remember that, right? Payment is always due. The businesses don't care. Businesses do not care normally, right? Even when I ran my business, there was a handful of times business didn't even care if they paid you, right? Because it was performance based. I'm not getting results. I don't want to pay you. So if you ask me if I was in performance, growth, marketing, whatever, yes, because my paycheck, well, rode on the fact that I was able to perform. Right now, if you're curious as to how I made that money, you got to look at revenue, not profit. And if I'm quoting revenue and you go contact an attorney or a lawyer to investigate, and they say, oh, profit wise, the number there, which was about $74,000, but the revenue was about 174, which you could have seen in my Square account, which I'm sure somebody saw. And I said I was on track to do $250,000. Well, that means if a couple more clients came on, I would have been doing $250,000. But you wanted to get nosy. You wanted to be a pain in the ass. You wanted to so on and so forth, right? Because you thought it was easy. Right? If it was easy, everybody would do it, right? That's what we say, right? Hell, I remember when I was younger and just before signing up for the military, we used to go to PT, and my sister, of course, just like my little brother, oh, Michael makes it look easy. I think I'm just going to go to the military like him. She came out to freaking fitness PT one day, barely made it on the run. I had to stay back with her. She's like, you guys go, I'll keep up. I don't think you fucking understand how it works around here. I have to now stay with you to make sure that you get to the finish line. We're not going to leave your ass behind. So either speed up or get the fuck out. Simple as that. Why? Because people's lives depend on you in this endeavor. Hate to say it, but it's true. Now, not to knock on the other branches, but the reason why is because we have less technology. We have to do more with less. We're expected to do so. We don't have fancy and large budgets and technology like the Air Force. We don't have large budgets like the Army or numbers like them, so on and so forth, or like the Navy. We get the leftover budget of the Navy, the leftover equipment of the Army, give or take sometimes the hand-me-downs, and then of course whatever the Air Force wants to do or share after it goes through all the other branches, we might get to play with. Why? One, we have to make sure it's efficient and it works. We have to make sure that, well, we're efficient with our budgeting. We have to make sure that we're on point. They show us how to do certain things and expect us not to. We're also supposed to, well, be knowledgeable enough to make the right decision. So if you see someone in the Marine Corps get in trouble, for instance, there was a gentleman, and I'll just say this, they teach us how to break the laws or skirt the law, but they expect us not to, right? We're kind of trained like Spartans, right? And so there was a video that came out with this whole, oh, I can't breathe type bullshit. And that actually came from a military personnel who was a Marine that ended up going to the brig, right? Now, the brig is military prison or jail, whatever you want to call it. And he got a little bit out of control. There was a lot of other things that encompassed that, but he also got in trouble utilizing the knowledge that he possessed. He wasn't some homeboy on the block that was just being stupid, disrespectful, etc. Then they wanted to reenact it in the media to cause drama. Think about it. Really think about it. You know, there's even a saying that we'll do anything that we have to in order to, well, acquire something, to get the job done. Sometimes we may get in trouble because we didn't read all the punitive articles or whatever the case may be, which would be like the laws or the U.S. code, etc., within the UCMJ. However, if you do, then you'll be perfectly fine. My mentee, I made her read every single one, right? And she was extremely successful. Shout out to Thayer if you're listening or you get to watch this, right? And so when I see people, when I hear people talk, I'm just like, do you even know what you're saying? I had someone say something to me. They're like, oh, that's blasphemy. And I'm like, do you know what blasphemy even means? Or are you just being stupid? I didn't say the stupid part, but do you even know what that means? Or, oh, that's stealing valor. Do you even know what that means? Or are you just being dumb, going based off a hearsay? See, blasphemy is declaring yourself as king in a religious context, but the chair was never supposed to be set, and hence the little image of Game of Thrones with all the swords in the chair, because it's a sword, not a cross. so on and so forth. The throne was never supposed to be sat in, right? Then, of course, you have valor. Well, stealing valor is saying that you were in the military when you weren't, so you're playing dumb or you're trying to act as such, and be careful because you're going to run up on somebody that was, and they're going to get highly pissed off. And of course, the media is going to play out this whole thing on, oh, a disgruntled veteran and the mental health and blah, 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 unleashed anger and wrath upon somebody that was, well, disrespecting him and stealing valor because they want to test the waters. Please, I hope that all this BS keeps going so that they declare martial law, and then you'll see exactly why the Marines got Alcatraz under control in less than an hour when nobody else could do it, apparently, according to legend and lore and story. All right? If you watch The Resident, which is about a former Marine that had CLS training, combat lifesaver training, so on and so forth, and he was a medic, i.e. doc, what's it called, who cross-trained, who became a doctor and went into the hospital, and somebody wanted to play stupid and play dumb and play all these fucking games, and he goes, yeah, we're not going to fucking play that here. Do you understand that? Unfuck yourselves. Pay attention to understand. Next point. Now, if you're getting anything out of this, if I'm coming off too stern or whatever, remember, this is to get a point across because it's emotional. Do I feel emotional? Do I seem emotional? Do I look emotional? Is my voice telling you that I'm emotional, right? Because in the other video, I talked about, well, my pitch, my tone, and everything else, and how you should control yours because sound is something that, well, can control emotion, whether that's music, etc. I mean, hell, I visited a mental health hospital and the, I guess, students that were there that were supposed to be assisting wanted to play with psychology. And there was a African-American gentleman there. And so they started playing like soft music. And all of a sudden I noticed that he was crying and getting teary-eyed. Then they played something else. And I noticed their body language, their reaction, their mannerisms, so on and so forth. They even looked at each other for confirmation because that's what people tend to do when they know each other. And smirked. And one of them said, it's working. I had one person walk by and say, oh my God, he almost said disciple. He said, that's weird. Do you know that the laws in the United States are based majority off spiritual texts? And if you know the difference between a disciple and an apostle, then you know what a DA is, district attorney. That's why you have a lawyer and an attorney, a disciple and an apostle, before you meet a judge. Hence the terms preparing for judgment. So if you don't know what you're saying, then have a representative help you understand or speak for you before you get yourself in trouble. Now, let's continue. Even in the spiritual, religious practices, sacrifices have to be made. I once told somebody who was going on and on, I think they were from Germany, and they said something about the spiritual world and this, that. Oh, they were like, oh, what about Azrael and all this? And I'll get into that in lesson 55 and all that. And I was like, you tell that person, whoever is going underneath that name, I said blah, 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 blah. And then you could go call home in Germany and say, burger, right? Because somebody wanted to play this game with somebody that I knew. And it was funny because once they told me their story, it reminded me of the movie Spy Game, right? So in the movie Spy Game, it's Robert Redford with Brad Pitt, and Brad Pitt is in China and all this other stuff, and he fakes, being sick to try to escape the country. And, it doesn't work. He goes to the hospital, this, that, and the third. It doesn't work, right? Robert Redford now gets a message that he's in trouble, and then he has to save his ass. But during his training, he goes to Brad Pitt and he goes, no country with a McDonald's within it has ever attacked the United States. Did you know that? Why is that? If you were able to solve hunger in certain places, well then why would you get upset with a place that provided it? Is it bad for you? That depends. Are you homeless, hungry, and on the street and barely have something to eat, and the only time you can get something to eat for maybe $3 or $5 or whatever with maybe a cup of water on the side is from McDonald's because it's the cheapest thing to get? That'll hold you long enough. That's why it's processed. a certain way. Remember in another video I said, if the Lost Boys ate pretend food, is that real meat or is that real chicken? And I took a bite out of this like chicken stick and I was like, I don't know, but it sure as hell tastes good. Think about it. If you ever seen Golden Circle or other movies like that where they talk about like the Secret Service, you have people going underneath call signs, right? So somebody's called Lancelot, somebody's called Merlin, but those are the Knights of the Round Table, right? Yet some people get misconstrued. They twist the story around. They make people believe one thing and go based off of hearsay, and then they make a story up in their head. This is why when investigators or police or detectives go to investigate a crime, they have to do so quickly, because if I had a board around here, actually I could use this. So if a crime were to occur and I were to go like this, right? So you see the circle, right? It looks like a circle, but it's really a curved line. Your brain just filled in the gap that's right here, right? And as time passes, that gap gets bigger and it starts to fill in certain things, right? Now, when that happens, you start making stuff up. You start going based upon other things. Your brain will fill it in just to make sense, to make logic out of it. Anybody that studied investigative tactics, Sherlock Holmes theory, deductive reasoning, so on and so forth, which I've done since I was like knee-high to a duck because I love Sherlock Holmes and a bunch of other stuff. But it was one of those things that has to occur. So they have to have a short amount of time, right? And they have a short amount of time in order to investigate to get proper or somewhat accurate memorization information from the people that were witnesses, right? Because if they wait too long, preferably more than 24 hours, that gap starts to depreciate, starts to become larger. And then, of course, by 48, 72, 96, and then all the way going into plus 100 hours, well, now that gap is a lot bigger. And of course, they're going to just make stuff up. So if you hear somebody that's trained, right, if you're informed and they're speaking a certain way, your nerves, if you're not used to it, will get triggered, right? Your body will react a certain way because of hearsay. You're trained to see the average person, not a trained person doing something tactfully, right? It's like watching a magician do his thing, right? If a magician is doing their thing, you're not going to interrupt the magician because you were prompted that they were a magician. But if you were never prompted, then you might step in. This looks weird. Let me see that. If I take this pen, right, and I make it disappear, and then it comes back. You were not prompted, but you saw something, and now you want to see it again. Your brain is curious, right? But if you were trained, then it's perfectly fine. Moving on to the next point. If everything is able to be replicated, then what's the point? Food, resources, let's just say cloning, etc., right? What do I mean by food, resources, cloning, etc.? Food. When DeSantis was running for president and everything else, and Trump ended up winning, and there was a whole bunch of drama during that time frame, he removed the protections of Disney, Walt Disney World in Florida. It was no longer its own entity. See, things like Puerto Rico it's within U.S. territory, but it's its own entity, right? And I always say like, oh, sometimes certain things happen, but it is what it is. But Puerto Rico is its own entity. It's just in U.S. territory, so they have certain privileges to a certain extent in for something in return. However, they get to kind of do their own thing, if that makes sense. This is why Disney used to have Disney Cash and everything else, so on and so forth, right? Once they remove that, it put stuff into the public domain once they enacted the King Charles Act. When they enacted the King Charles Act, it not only protected Disney World, but all its facilities, but it also opened up, Disney's powered by, the whole thing is like Disney, Epcot, Universal, anything that's within its domain is powered by solar. Right? Then it has vertical farming. You could go to Epcot, you could go to other places. It's in the public domain. You just have to pay the ticket fee and you'll be able to witness this. You could go to Tomorrowland and see the animatronics and the robots, so on and so forth. It's in the public domain, which means it can be now replicated on a grand scale across the United States, which means you could have healthy fruits, vegetables, etc., technology, and even bypass certain secrecy agreements when it comes to solar energy. Think about it. And that's what I also mean about resources, right? Because you need energy. People are pushing out AI, but that's going to require energy. It's going to pull from somewhere. Well, if you have a hybrid vehicle that needs a battery to charge, or you're fully electric, wouldn't it be smart to add a solar panel to the top or somewhere like behind a sunroof, or to power other stuff? I mean, they put it on Airstreams. Why not put it on a vehicle, right? Why not put that on your house, generate enough solar energy during the summertime, and then, well, sell the rest back to the city so that you can make money and then lower your mortgage rate if the interest that you got locked in on is too high. Most people don't think like that. Back in the day, they were cloning sheep and duplicating things, right? They have stem cell research and all this other stuff. And I got upset one time and I was like, if they can make the Impossible Burger, what can't they make? Right? It's the Impossible Burger. They use stem cells and everything else like that. And if you're getting anything out of this, smash that like and follow button, subscribe, do what you got to do. Love you guys. Now, if they can make the Impossible Burger, who's to say they couldn't make soft tissue, like a kidney, like a heart, like lungs, like other vital organs that make up the body? Why? But you can now see all that come to fruition thanks to the restrictions that got removed from Disney World, right? You have Walt Disney, or you got to find somebody like Walter O'Brien from the TV show Scorpion. There's a real one somewhere. I forgot his. He has like a ponytail. I think he's in the first episode. He's working in air tower control or something like that. The control tower at the airport when they're trying to save everything. And I think he looks at the camera briefly. Talk to him. Look at the laws. Get a sophisticated attorney, an intelligent attorney that doesn't play dumb and delete evidence, but one that actually has proof, that is able to go toe to toe, so on and so forth with those, and is not scared to jump in the ring, right? So think about it. Moving forward, if the above is true, then everything is free, right? See, there's a difference between freedom and liberty, and people don't understand that. See, freedom is an assumption. It's very broad, because you could say, oh yeah, no, you're free when you come here, and then you find out there's all these laws. If you say certain things, people scrutinize you. If you do certain things, they look at you a certain way. So are you really free? Liberty is what's granted to those within certain contexts. It's normally dictated in definition as when you are on ship, you have liberty to go onto shore and do whatever it is that you want to do as a regular individual that resides within that area, that premise, etc. And that's something that's relatively understandable if you do your research. But if you don't understand the difference between freedom and liberty, then you don't know what the hell you're talking about, because even liberty cracked with a nail. Why do I say that? The Liberty Bell has a nail in it, and it cracked, right? How did it crack? Lady Liberty cracked with a nail. Well, if everything's based on religious context, somebody was nailed to a cross. And I'll get into more depth in this in lesson 55, I think it is. I just finished writing that, I think, a couple days ago or yesterday or something like that. But Liberty cracked with a nail. When you're a Navy SEAL, they say, what do you got to do? All you got to do is ring the bell. You could quit anytime you want. Ring the bell, right? Did that mean they broke you, they cracked you, etc., before you were about to do something? In certain training, they push you far enough to see if you're going to take a violent action, and a psychological understanding, whether that's SEER training, where you have a pet with you, and then all of a sudden you have two options. They don't tell you the second option, similar to in Avengers, right? Doctor Strange was able to see the future. He did not tell Tony Stark that he did not have to sacrifice himself, that Nick Fury could have easily called Captain Marvel. However, he kept quiet, right? Similar concept. They give you a pet, so on and so forth. They put you into two groups, whether you're masculine, feminine, whatever the case may be. You go through everything, and then as you're surviving off the land and everything else, there comes a point where there's nothing else to eat. Now you can do one or two things. You can kill the animal that's with you, right? Either it's a pet bunny, a dog, a duck, whatever the case may be, or You can utilize what you know. You can forage. You can go to the tree, pull the bark off, eat some maggots, right? I know it sounds horrible, but if you saw what protein was made out of, you'd think differently, right? You can dig in the dirt wherever there's forest land, right? Or a lot of grass where it's moist. You can eat grubs, right? Timon and Pumbaa, Lion King. You have bark on a tree that's a little bit thicker. You take your knife, you take whatever, if you have a hatchet, and you start to chop into it, and then all of a sudden you see the maggots there, right? You eat that, the larva, right? You learn about the different plants because they teach you, and you can forage that way. Thing is, a lot of people don't choose that route. Sometimes they take the path of least resistance, so they'll kill the animal. But it's a significant test, right? And the same thing is done in, what's it called? Not Golden Circle, but the first one, right? The movie about Secret Service in the UK and everything like that, where he has to kill the dog, etc. And they hand him a pistol to see if you could kill your best friend, this, that, and the third, right? So it's a test. Right? Those who are able to do so, whom pass, well, they get put on special assignments to pull the trigger on other things. Those who don't have proven they are mentally strong, etc., and they are able to do other assignments as well because they have a stronger mindset, unless, well, they're under hypnosis, influence, drugs, etc., LSD, or being a project for use for scientific purposes, or whatever the case may be, right? Outside of that, 9 times out of 10, they'll get grouped into 2 different classes. Now let's continue. If it's free for them, then what do you learn in death? So let's go over this again. If it's free for them, then what do you learn in death or after? So they have, it's they want this and they want that. It's they versus them, this, that, and the third. So if it's free for them and they could get away with it, what will they learn, or what will you learn in death or after, right? Well, that's a rhetorical question, because in order to learn something after death, you would have to come back from it, right? What did they learn? Probably nothing. Took the path of least resistance, trying to play memorization games, or, they won't mind this, that, and the third because they're being a pain in the ass. I'll just steal this. It's perfectly fine. Did you need it or did you want it? If you needed it, you could have just asked. If you wanted it, you could have just said, hey, where did you get this? And I could have showed you where to purchase it. There's a difference. Needs and wants are different. You need shelter. You need transportation. You need finances to get by, to survive, right? Maslow's hierarchy in psychology. Do you need a pen? Do you need sunglasses? Depending on where you are. If part of your occupation is driving and you need to see when it's extremely bright outside, then you might need sunglasses. If you know you're driving, or you have to take down notes of an order, so on and so forth, you might need a pen. If you can't move a cellular device because it penalizes you, then you might need a pen with a stylus on it, so that you don't have to move very much. If you work at night, you might need a pen with a stylus on it sometimes that can also light up, etc., as I've shown before, and I can show this again, so that you can see at night when you're writing down the order or when you're trying to move around. Use fucking common sense. I know not many of you read Thomas Paine, but try. It's not that much. It's like maybe less than 200 pages. But please, by all means, educate yourself. Now, understand, don't just hear. Hear me, but don't understand. We already clarified that, right? Earlier, right? So listen to understand. Do not just hear what is being said, because it will surely be repeated. And if you don't believe me, well, then go for it and try. And then you'll realize that, well, not only people don't really pay attention as much as normal, but they're not really trying to understand you either, which is normally why most relationships fail. People get stuck in their own ways, right? They don't want to grow. They just know their own ways, their methods work, etc. It's worked for others, but as a doctor, If you're a good one, you understand that every person's situation is almost different in a slight little couple millimeters. So if it's different in certain millimeters, right, then there is something that either you're missing that's not working. Because maybe it could work for the masses. If somebody has a cold, go home, rest for 2 weeks, drink orange juice, take a multivitamin, etc., and you'll recover. If it's a virus or bacterial infection, take an antibiotic like zithromycin, which is an antibacterial thing for bacteria, diseases, or colds. You can take that, so on and so forth. If you have a foot fungus, go ahead and put this on your foot. Spray it after you come out of a shower. Make sure you hygiene. Make sure you clean underneath the nail. You use everything correctly. Spray this on your foot quickly, wrap it up, and then go on. You'll be good in about 7 to 13 days, give or take. Now, if it's something that's more complex, because there's multiple parties involved, then that's different, right? Because then you don't know where the issue is coming from. Or maybe you do, and somebody's thinking that they're teaching someone a lesson, or they want to know every piece of information or aspect about their fucking life before they could trust somebody. How much time does it take to trust somebody? What do you have to put someone through to trust somebody? How do you test somebody to trust fucking somebody? Especially if someone's life is on the line, right? Hell, I play with ammunitions and explosives. And if you ever worked with anybody that was part of EOD, Ammotech, etc., they have a very calm personality. 9 times out of 10, they're pretty calm. The reason I say this is because you're working with ammunitions and explosives. So we become sarcastic. Why? Because the shit we deal with is mechanical. It could go off at any time. A cell phone could set it off with the right frequency. So our mindset is a little bit different. Whereas other people get flustered because you cut them off on the highway, or they didn't like the sticker, or they were told something about you and now they want to pretend to crash into you and then say it was an accident to damage your day because they're just pissed off about their own fucking life. Weird. So how do I say this? What does pay attention mean, right? And now a lot of people don't normally talk like this, but see, the word, I have it tacked off and broken up. So pay for, right? Pay, and then attention, ATTENTION, etc., right? If you don't understand what's being said, then it's going to go over your head because things could be condensed very quickly. And if I needed to get a message across quickly, I could have a normal conversation if you understand vernacular, vocabulary, and everything else. Recall it later if you have a decent memory, and then figure it out. But if you don't know what attention is, then why do you have a cell phone? You've never heard of AT&T? That's in the first 3 letters of attention, right? And then EN, what is that? Is that Latin? If it is, what does it translate to? And then TION, right? Pay attention, caution, etc., right? So what does it mean, right? Why don't you ask better questions instead of staying silent? Open your fucking ears, right? Ask questions with genuine curiosity. Don't be lost in the sauce and pissed off. I had somebody steal this red pen. I have a red one, well, had one in my car, and they stole this with aviators. Now, in another video, I mentioned that there are no green pens in my martial arts system, but there are 2 different types of pens. See, one has a clicking feature. 9 times out of 10, if you received one that has a clicking feature, it lets me know and it lets you know that, well, I know that you're somewhat trained, you're intelligent, but you do have a tendency to communicate quite often. So you make sound, just like the pen, right? Which is why it clicks. See, the silent one does not, right? Like the word dumb, the B silent, right? Or Corps, right? Peace Corps, the S is silent. Marine Corps, the S is silent, right? Army is, well, what? You could hear the letters, right? Navy you can hear the letters. Air Force, you can hear the letters. This one doesn't make that much noise. So if you got a pen like this, I know that you more than likely can not only keep a secret, but keep your mouth shut. And then I could take you further down a certain path of training versus what other people are used to. So if you received a red clicky pen, I know that once your temperature or your misunderstanding gets to a certain point, right, and you're about to become violent, you're going to start, your voice is going to change. It's going to amplify, the tone, pitch, and everything is going to alter. And so I hear the click, 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 like a car, right? Click, 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 then like a motorcycle and anything else. If you stole and possess a red one, you will probably abstain in court if you witness a murder or a killing, so on and so forth. Now, mind you, this is for educational purposes. But if you stole a red pen and you were not given a red pen, then you don't understand exactly nor fully, do you? Right? So you'll abstain. What's Epstein or abstain? Abstain, right? To abstain in court, to remain silent, plead the fifth. I got 5 on it, which is Abraham Lincoln, which is weird because they stopped making pennies, allegedly, and Lincoln's on the penny. How much common sense do you need, right? Thou shalt not what? 5 + 1 = 6. 6th commandment. Give them one. Here's a penny. A penny for your thoughts, as they would say, right? Think about it. Now, the last 2 points. What you value can entertain and please you towards happiness, but also distract you. If you ever watched the movie Cinderella Man, it takes place during the Great Depression, so on and so forth. And I say that quite often for a specific reason. If you're entertained by what you're seeing, remember, Cinderella Man was the Great Depression. The only thing they were able to make money off of was entertainment, right? And now you have social media, YouTube, Amazon Video, Hulu, Disney, Fight Night, the UFC, video games, etc. And then you have kids on these games like Roblox and everything else that will spend money to convert that into something else so that they could purchase something within the game, and they make a lot of money, right? How much money do you think they spend on other things in life, right? Going on trips, experiences, right? Minus the fact that, treating their finances as a priority. So you take care of your finances first, and then maybe you could go out to the bar and hang out with everybody. People say, oh, live a little. I got bills to pay, bitch. I don't have a slush fund anymore. Somebody fucked that up. Thank you, Army, or thank you, police, or thank you, whoever, because that's what my mother said. So I hope you guys understand what the hell's going on. No offense to my mother, but she didn't know who the hell to blame. You got to blame somebody, right? That was like in an interview. Somebody asked, if you're going in dark, why do you have the American flag on? And he smiles and goes, you got to blame somebody, right? If you don't know I said this to somebody else, if you don't know the Apostles' Creed, what that has to do with Assassin's Creed and everything else, you don't know what the hell's going on, do you? If you have issue with certain things and somebody's like, it's a lamb, not a ram, and then you forget that lamb is in Islam, or is there no B? If you have an issue with laws, so on and so forth, and then you have an issue with other religions, so on and so forth, like, oh, the Jewish people this, but dude, you don't believe in the judicial system. Are you going to legislate that? Do you even know what that means? Then you're going to go talk to the executive, 3 points of contact. So whatever entertains you can bring you towards happiness. However, it can also distract you, right? If you want to get information from somebody, you need the right person or the right thing in order to acquire that information. If you want to bypass the First Amendment, you just have to enter into the technological field and use, well, direct energy technological weapons, etc., or DET, direct energy technology, or DEW, direct energy weapons, right? And then you can bypass the First Amendment because it doesn't specifically speak of thoughts or the brain waves, etc. And because, as it's said in Suits by Lewis, the law is a precise endeavor. So if it doesn't specifically state that in the First Amendment and they don't make an amendment for it, then people will come out with technology to bypass it and share that with everybody else. Here's a clue. Your enemies already know about it. Fun fact. I cross-trained with a couple of them. They know about dental implants and how that goes around because people spoke about it. They know about your direct energy weapons because they know about it. Unfuck yourselves. If you are distracted by tech or the stories, right? I mean, this is the last point here, so let me bring this in here. If you are distracted by technology or stories, right? And they tell you you will fall prey to their lies and cognitive biases that confirm what you want it to confirm. And they know this and use it against you. Don't be biased, but understand, right? Now, what do I mean by don't be biased, right? Think of it like a lazy Susan, right? It's like a little disc. It looks like a turntable. You could spin it, etc. And instead of getting up to get the salt or the pepper, whatever, you could just spin the thing and it comes over. But if somebody comes up to you and says, why do I need to study, or why do I got to learn this when I have you? That's an indicator that they have insider knowledge or information they were privy to that they're just feeding off of you without realizing, like I stated earlier, that everybody has a different situation. Everybody has a different test. Everybody's stuff is put into a different sequence. So if you're looking for the and all be all answer, know that there is no 100 on the ASVAB, just like there is no 100 in life. The highest score you could get is a 99. Flip that around for those of you listening. I think that's 66. So if the highest you can get is a 99, but every question is different, the person sitting next to you has a different question or problem, then why not communicate that so you can solve it faster with somebody who could possibly help instead of waiting in the background to possibly get an answer that may or may not help you because you were fearful. You lacked the goal to push back and say, all right, look, I have this problem or I have a question, etc. See, I got used to being very direct, breaking things down. In the military, they say Barney style, but being that I'm out right now, we'll call it Bluey, right? So we're going to break it down like Bluey. If we're going to break it down like Bluey, just tell me your problem. If you want me to call somebody out, I'll call them out. Hey, do we got any guys in here that want to sleep with this person? No? Hey, can you tell this lady right here without makeup, so on and so forth, that she's beautiful? She didn't need to worry about her hair that much. She didn't need to worry about the other stuff. She clearly didn't watch, Eat, Pray, Love and stuff like that with Julia Roberts. I think that was the name of the movie, where she traveled, went to Italy, and she goes, oh my God, I got to cut back on eating, etc. I'm outgrowing my jeans. And the girl goes, we'll just buy bigger jeans. Can somebody please talk to this guy right here? Oh, I have a friend that's shy, that doesn't know how to dance or is scared to dance. He's very masculine, so on and so forth. He's like, you'll never catch me on the dance floor dancing that salsa bachata stuff, etc., or doing the waltz, until I get the right person to show up and they take him and his wife out and they go dancing. And then they realize, just like jumping in the deep end of the water, mystery, I'm stealing from you. But they get, thrown in the deep end of the pool, or they jump in and they realize that the water is just fine. and they could get along with everybody. Don't fall prey to bias. Most people like power and control, so they'll use the direct energy weapons, etc. They'll use misdirection, they'll use manipulation, they'll use mentalism, tactics from magic, etc. to steer you, to make you feel as though you're either having a mental breakdown or something else. But if you don't know, if you don't study, if you don't educate yourself, you're not only going to get lost in the sauce, you're going to end up on fucking medication with probably the wrong diagnosis because they're still learning. I'm not going to say, Father, forgive them, because I'm not that person. I'm more of the person that's more old school. Like, can you please fire this person? Can you slap them in the face? Send them back to school. Maybe somebody else, I don't know, Chris Brown's coming. Maybe if Jesus showed up, he would say that. My name ain't fucking Jesus. So, let's get something straight. Unfuck yourselves. Pay attention to understand. And if you don't understand something, ask a fucking question, no matter your age. You don't know everything. Neither do I. This is why I communicate with so many people. It's probably why most of my friends when I was younger were older than me. Because I didn't get along with a lot of people my age because they just were doing other stuff that didn't pertain to, well, getting out of the situation that me and my family were in. Right? We didn't come from much, but we had a lot at the same time because we had each other. And then we got separated. And then I had to figure out how to pull myself out of that, how to get away from dangerous environments, or how to get away from chaos or toxic environments. So I went to the military. And then before, because somebody anticipated me leaving, they blocked it with a fictitious label, spread that around the fucking area, wanted to play this little fucking game, taught everybody a new vocabulary word that they could utilize like a code word, and then started getting worried when their ass got put on notice. What is wrong with you? Seriously. If I tell you, oh, the Marines, they were trained like the Greeks, right? So what's the difference between Greece and the military? I don't know. The Athenians were like the army. Spartans were like something else. Rise of an Empire had a navy. But let me guess, you're still stuck on watching Cars because you don't know what the hell you're doing. Till next time, my friends. That was point 11, and this was lesson 52, if I remember correctly, and continuing education of class. Now, forgive me if my tonality, if my pitch, if the way I presented was incorrect. It made you feel a certain way. And if it made you feel a certain way, I strongly encourage you to watch the previous lesson so that you understand that I was trying and intentionally speaking a certain way to get my point across. Now, most of you who are amateurs or novices in the field, not to knock on anybody because there are experts, will try this and get it wrong. So don't get upset when the pushback happens and you get emotionally triggered, because it only shows me where you are in a level of maturity. It also shows me exactly how well trained you are or aren't. And if you're able to, handle the pushback verbally, then you'll be able to avoid going to number 2 and being on number 1. Till next time, my friends, take care. Peace.